Coming up on today's Locked On Senators, we've talked RFAs when it comes to Shane Pinto, Eric Brandstrom, Alex DeBrincat, and what about the bubble players like Igor Sokolov and Jacob Bernard-Docker? But today, it's all about goaltending. Who's going to be the tandem in Ottawa? And if you could only keep one, would it be Dylan Ferguson or Kevin Mandolese?
And we continue our 2023 NHL Draft prospect profiles. And Ross, none of these kids are concerned about size, that's for sure. We've got Danny Nelson, Charlie Stramel, and Kasper Halttunen.
Great trio of players into the second round of our rankings and more coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I'm Jake Sanderson, and you're listening to Locked On Senators podcast.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Welcome inside episode 824 of the Locked On Senators podcast. I'm Ross Levitan on the outskirts of enemy territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Please like and subscribe wherever you download your podcast. We're also available on YouTube, where a subscription not only goes a long way to the road to 6,000, where we will be giving away a Senators jersey of your choice if we get it by the draft, June 28th. So get there now. Be a friend. Tell a friend. We also have our Avatar 2, well, our version of it, dropping with an over 4-hour mock draft that is coming on Saturday. Today is Tuesday, June 20th, and Pilsy, as a goalie-friendly show, I know you're fired up about our topic today.
Yeah, I love talking tendies. And look, some people might be like, well, we got a lot bigger issues up in the NHL crease, but developing these goalies right and getting the right tandem in Belleville is a big deal as well. And with two of these guys, RFAs without a contract, a decision needs to be made, or decisions need to be made.
Especially with Levitan coming over full-time now next season. He'll be at training camp. He'll be ready to go, and he showed super well in Belleville, had an amazing first NHL start, and then a tough second NHL start. So It's kind of a mixed bag. You expect that for these kids. Mads Søgaard, it was a learning year for him of going in basically like a freshman year of college in a city where you don't know anyone, it felt like, where you're asking a lot out of him to, be able to fit into an NHL dynamic where if it weren't for multiple injuries at the top level, he would have spent the year developing in Belleville. Instead, he's asked a ton. So with Mads Søgaard, I think that's probably the most natural place to start. I know we're going to get to the RFAs, but Pilsy, this is the X factor next season, because some fans saw enough out of the good for Mads Søgaard at the NHL level that they'd be comfortable with him starting at the NHL level this season. I don't know where I stand on that. I'm probably not too confident, though.
No, and this is not a detriment to Mads Søgaard. We love Mads. Both of us have been on record saying we believe he has the potential to be a goalie of the future for this franchise. But it's so funny because you got to look at Filip Gustavsson as an example. But I think some people are being like, well, Gustavsson went to the Wild and had an amazing season, so why can't Mads be ready for that? Well, I just think you need a little bit more time for Mads, because he was put into that position out of necessity, not because he showed he was ready for that. Still, the numbers in Belleville aren't where you want them to be, and I think he could really benefit from being the number one guy in Belleville for another season while having two goalies, one of them being Levitan and or Mando and or Ferguson, challenging for that spot as well. So I just think where the Ottawa Senators are right now, they're pushing for a playoff spot. You can't have a risky situation with the young guy having to take a lot of the games played in the crease.
And Mads Søgaard's waivers exempt. He's in the final year of his entry-level contract. Seems like a perfect situation to be an up-and-down guy, because injuries happen, and you need depth in the crease. How deep can the depth go, though? Pilsy, do you see a situation where the Senators can realistically have a confident two-person tandem at the NHL level with Anton Forsberg and insert player X here, and then still keep both Dylan Ferguson and Kevin Mandolese?
Yeah, I do. Just because, look, you need to have depth. The Ottawa Senators used 7 goalies last year. It was a wild experience in the crease. So, and look, this is the reason why you have ECHL teams, and say what you want, but I believe the ECHL is actually a great spot for young goalies because you're on an island there. The defense is not as good. There's not as much structure. You're often asked to make second and third saves down there. There's a lot of learning you can do. And I can't wait to talk to Mando again, Ross, have him back on the show and ask him about his playoff run with the Allen Americans, because he'll probably tell us much of the same. So if you need one or two guys playing in the ECHL for a decent chunk of games, that's okay. That's what it's there for.
Well, you'd need two if you're going to keep both of them. We'll pull up here. Yeah, we made a graphic of what the Senators goalie situation looks like right now. Anton Forsberg, the only tendy up with the one-way contract. He's on a very reasonably priced deal, so long as everything works out health for him. $2.75 million. He's going into the second to final year of his contract. 2.75, as I mentioned, is the AAV on that one. But beyond that, it's two-way contracts and RFAs. Mads Søgaard, Levi Meriläinen. I would love that to be the tandem in Belleville. But where does that leave Kevin Mandolese? 22 years old, showed very well in his 3 NHL games. Not as great in his 17 AHL games with an .890 save percentage, whereas Dylan Ferguson came in and stabilized the position at every level. He was unreal against Pittsburgh in his first NHL start. He was pretty good in his second NHL game against New Jersey, and he was elite in Belleville. 8 games, a .926 save percentage down there. So I think that if you're going off of last year's body of work, you're probably leaning Dylan Ferguson. But at the same time, we talked about this with Igor Sokolov and with Jacob Bernard-Docker yesterday, Pilsy. At some point, the amount of investment your organization has put into a player should come through here. And Mandolese's been with the team for 4 seasons. He's been drafted since 2018, and they've spent money on dev camp. They've spent money on moving him from Allen to Belleville. I think that loyalty should play a factor in here over a guy you traded future considerations for midseason.
Yeah, and not only just loyalty, Ross, but you didn't just put a bunch of goalie prospects on a dartboard and throw it, and whoever you landed on, that's who you drafted, right? There's a reason they drafted Kevin Mandolese. They believe in his character. He's got great size for a goalie. He's only 22 years old. He's going to turn 23 in a couple months, but there's a lot of development and potential for Kevin Mandolese. So I just think it would be silly not to at least give him a better chance, because he's been a soldier for this franchise, going up, down, left, right, wherever they ask, whatever they need of him, he's done. So I believe he deserves some credit and a better chance in this franchise.
So your answer to this is keep both.
My answer would be you have to keep Mando. One way or another, you have to keep Mando. And then if you feel that Ferguson is a guy and you could work out a deal with him where he knows that he's going to have to be battling and there's a potential that he could spend time, a decent amount of time in the East Coast League, then that's fine. I think keeping both is ideal, but I think you must keep Mando.
Well, the fans have spoken on Twitter at Sens Central, and they share your sentiment. Early returns on the vote say that 77% of the citizens out there would rather keep Mando than Dylan Ferguson, which surprised me a little bit because of the high level of play that Dylan Ferguson showed. But hey, loyalty wins out here, and potential, because it's not like Mando didn't step up. And the two of them are also on the same list in most saves in an NHL debut.
Yeah.
They're both on the list in the top 5, and they both happened this past season. Mando's got the frame to be a great goalie, the athleticism, and 2 years younger, like you mentioned, than Dylan Ferguson. So I lean Mando as well. But man, if they could find a way to keep both, I think depth is super important. But Pilsy, the Senators, and going through this lesson together has just exonerated the point that the Senators need to acquire a goalie this summer. They cannot, with the expectations that are on this team, no excuses, we keep saying, they can't go into it with a goalie on a 2-way contract, entry level, who had an .890 save percentage last year. That can't be a part of the tandem on opening night.
No, it absolutely can't. And you need to give Anton Forsberg some support, especially coming off 2 MCL injuries. And the thing is, Ross, the only reason I'm leaning more towards Mando also, or I shouldn't say the only reason. Another reason I'm leaning more towards Mando is I think Ferguson is going to want a better shot somewhere else. I think he showed that he has potential, and there's going to be teams out there that can give him a better offer with more potential to play in the AHL and possibly NHL than the Ottawa Senators can. And I think it would be wise for him to look at other options.
We will have another episode soon about which goalies we'd like the Senators to get, because they need an NHL goalie going into next season.
Need one.
How does the salary fit in? How does everything work out? That's coming up in a soon to be episode later this week as we continue to grind it out with the draft coverage. And these profiles that we're putting up individually on YouTube is a great reminder before the draft. If a name comes up, sparks your interest, they are all 10 minutes or less. Make sure you check them out on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. The road to 6,000 continues. We want it by the draft. We want it bad. So go be a friend, tell a friend. Love all the citizens out there. And let's get to 3 big-time players, all standing 6'3". But Pilsy, we'll save it. But they all have different styles of games. Stay locked on Senators wherever you download your podcasts.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Everyone knows all about eBay shopping online, but did you know you can get parts and accessories for your car at eBay Motors? For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. And hey guys, it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, just head to eBay Motors. With eBay's guaranteed fit, you can be sure every part fits right the first time around. Just add your car to My Garage and look for the green check so you know that your part will fit, or you get your money back. It's simple, because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game. And with over 122 million parts, you can be confident that you'll be back in the game in no time. So get the right parts, get the right fit, and get the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. Let's ride at eBay Motors.
Today's episode is also brought to you by my happy place, a place where I'm going to be in less than 2 weeks. It's Shawarma Palace. I'm getting off the plane in Ottawa and going right to Shawarma Palace, because when you're off a plane, you know that you're hangry, and what better place to go than to fuel fill at Shawarma Palace. I'm going to visit the location on Rideau Street right by Chapel. My favorite, kind of nostalgic. I love the old time feel and just reminds me of my youth. But what I also love is that the food is the exact same. Fresh, fulfilling, so tasty, and the portion sizes are ridiculous at Shawarma Palace. So make sure you go there, get the platter, get the chicken, get the beef, get the falafel, have a great time at Shawarma Palace. Or if you're in a rush, bang, grab the wrap to go. All good at Shawarma Palace. They're also available on Uber Eats, so make sure you're checking them out on Uber Eats. And their other locations are all over town. You can also find them on social media, Shawarma Palace on Twitter, Shawarma Palace Ottawa on Instagram. Check them out at the Saint Laurent Shopping Center. They're also at the Carleton University Food Court. They're on Woodruff. They're on Bank Street, right by Baseball Town. You can also find them at Bank and Hunt Club. You're never too far away from a Shawarma Palace, so go check them out today. Go eat like a royal. Man, just an amazing place. I honestly, my mouth's starting to water. I'm ready to go. Get Shawarma Palace. Make me jealous, and I will see you there in less than a week. Shawarma Palace, the only place for shawarma in Ottawa since 1997. All right, Pilsy. We're going to Ottawa in less than 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Fired up for that, man.
Hey, you're fired up for Shawarma Palace. So am I. Oh, my God.
When's the last time you went to Ottawa in the summer?
Honestly, long time ago. I think for like a grade 8 grad trip, we did Ottawa and Quebec City in the same trip. That was probably it, and that would have been like mid-June. So right around this time, about I don't know, 20 years ago when I was in grade 8.
So you're literally like a snowbird, but you just come to Ottawa for your winter fun.
Yeah, I pretty much exclusively go to Ottawa in the winter. Yeah.
Hey, man, that's hockey season. That's what it's all about. So, hey, we want to see all the citizens there. Let us know if you're around. And, hey, we'll see you at Dev Camp, because we're going to go check out Sens Dev Camp, grab some live interviews for you. It's going to be a great time right after the draft, too. So, hopefully get to introduce you to some new Ottawa Senators, whether they're drafting in the first round, trading up, maybe the second, trading up. Lots of moving parts for the Ottawa Senators right now as we are deep into draft season. Coming in on the Locked On Senators 2023 NHL Draft Rankings at number 36, we're going back to the U.S. National Team Development Program, and it's centerman Danny Nelson.
Yep, Danny Nelson, a big kid at 6'3", 203 pounds. He's a left shot forward. In 62 games, he had 21 goals, 26 assists, good for 47 points. And this is an interesting player because we've talked a lot about all the US and DTP guys, and he kind of flies under the radar a little more than those high-profile guys. But that's not to say that he doesn't have his spot and things that need to be highlighted about him, because he plays a little bit different than some of those top-line players.
Yeah, he's the 5th US NTDP player on our list out of the top 36. He was put in a more defensive role on that team, right? They had their top-line center was Will Smith. Then they had Oliver Moore. And then as a more kind of penalty-killing, physical kind of specialist, they had Danny Taylor, left shot, as you mentioned. The points are there. He's committed to Notre Dame. That's a good school to be going to as well. And Craig Button sees him as a first-round talent. Greg Button has him at 28th overall on his rankings. Scott Wheeler all the way down at 50. Well, how about in between? Corey Pronman, I guess a first-rounder now too, now that Seattle's in the mix, 32nd on his rankings. And then Chris Peters and Elite Prospects both agree that he's 43rd on their list. Pilsy, what is the number one attribute you're acquiring when a team drafts Danny Nelson?
Nice. You corrected yourself there. You said Danny Taylor the first time.
Oh,
my old, my guy, Belleville goalie coming from the KHL. But yes, Danny Nelson.
The surface.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, he's going to University of Notre Dame next season. That'll be interesting. One interesting note I found about him, Ross, is Pronman had this in his little pieces. He played center and the wing this year, so versatile. But he was playing defense in high school. That's not that long ago for a kid that's about to enter his first year into college. So I would love to learn more about what caused that switch that late in his development. But you know what? I look at this as a positive spin zone, because this is a kid that's going to understand the game from all 5 positions on the ice, other than, maybe he played tendy as a kid. I don't know. But it provides you that hockey sense to know, how to defend better, what defenders might be thinking, and things like that. So I think that's great. One thing you got to notice right away with Danny Nelson is the great shot. He's got a quick release. He loves going upstairs on goalies. He's able to snap it top shelf so easily. And he's a physical player that actually uses his size to his advantage, which you love to see. He's laying out hits. He's protecting the puck. He's being tough in the corners and board battles. So I think Danny Nelson, if teams are looking for a power forward, they're going to be turning their attention towards him.
I love how he plays physically. That's something that I think is missing from a lot of the kids that we're talking about throughout this whole draft prospects, and another one coming up today where he has the size, but you're just waiting for him to physically dominate a game, which Danny Taylor can do. Pro built. You talk
Danny Nelson. You did it again.
Are you serious? What? I figured it out. Danny Taylor is his alter ego. You said maybe he played goalie.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what it is. Danny Nelson. My goodness. Danny Nelson. I'm just going to call him Daniel Nelson. Hey, we'll go with his official name. Gold medal winning player with the World Under 18s. August 3rd birthday, which makes me feel old because he was born a day before my 13th birthday. But when you talk about what he brings to an NHL organization, it's depth. Like, I don't think you're going to see him as a top 6 upside type player, but if you have already like a skilled prospect pool, like an Anaheim, I know they already have Nathan Gaucher, but Nathan Gaucher would kind of be a bit of a comparable, I think, in a sense of you're looking at overall, he's going to be kind of a defensive matchup type centerman at the next level. And I think he's going to need 3 or 4 years even at school, but you're looking at a player that if you have that skill development player in your organization, he could be a guy that your scouts or your development coaches are just begging to get their hands on because the tools are there. You mentioned the shot, great in transition, can turn defensive plays into offense super quick. The games that EP tracked, they had him at a 95 percentile in his transition play. So I think that when you're looking at a defensive type player, the best offense is a good defense sometimes. And Danny Nelson can come through in the clutch when that's the type of game that needs. And I think when the games get harder and tougher later in the year, this is the type of player that will step up and have a big goal that can send your team to the next round or whatever the case may be. When the temperature gets turned up, he's the guy you want on your third line.
Yeah, so a couple things I want to kind of comment on there from your little rant. I agree. EP mentioned that he's a play driver, so he attacks up the middle. He's determined to get into those hard to get areas, which I love. Like, again, just using his size to his advantage. And then you mentioned that what type of team would draft him. The idea I had, Ross, for this is I'm looking at a team that is on the cusp of making playoffs. So for the Locked On Senators podcast's sake, let's say the Sens, right? They're right there. And then 2-3 years down the road, when he's NHL ready, you can plug him in as a bottom six guy on an ELC and save some money and spend that money elsewhere, knowing that, hey, this guy is not gonna burst out offensively, but once he develops a little bit more, he's got that size, he plays physical. This is a guy we can see playing in our bottom six, and we can get him on the cheap. And that way we can put more money towards our goaltending, more money towards our top six, towards defenders, all those kinds of things. So I actually think it's going to be a team that is closer to playoff contention that looks at a Danny Nelson, because they're going to already have top six guys locked up. You don't need that. But with the salary cap, you need a couple guys on your team on entry-level contracts. And I think Danny Nelson is a perfect candidate for that.
And it's going to be a slow and steady progression for Danny Nelson because he's going to Notre Dame, but not this year. It's 1 year beyond. So he'll be.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
And he was only at the program for 1 year as well. He joined late. He only played 11 games, not this past, but the year before. And from this scout told EP, like, hey, you have him at 53. He thinks he's going to go much higher than that. He can skate. He's got good offensive skill. Going to be a steal of the draft in 5 years, he says. This Western Conference scout said it in May, says he doesn't think he'll sneak into the first round, but really early in the second round, we're going to see that Danny Nelson comes off the board. Now, Danny Nelson, who does he model his own game after? Leon Draisaitl, which, I mean, that's a
Smart.
good one. Hey, reach for the stars, kid. Reach for the stars.
Yeah. Steal of the draft in this draft, I feel like that's a bit hyperbolic, but hey, very well could come true.
Where do you like him? I know you said the type of team. Like, I know that they don't have any picks, but like, I know Tampa's taken like these big centermen before Finley comes out, but that's the type of team I think would love to have him.
Yeah, Tampa is a perfect example. Yeah, a perfect example. I see him going in the mid-second round. I would be very surprised if he goes in the first.
Thing is, the Tampa Bay Lightning don't have a first, second, third, fourth, or fifth round draft pick.
He's not going to Tampa.
Can you believe that? They have 3 picks this draft, a 6th and 2 7th.
Hey,
And next year, they don't have a first or a second.
I mean, if you're trying to win cups, who cares about picks?
Yeah, picks
Look
are
at the Vegas Golden Knights. I think Vegas had one drafted player on their team, like one player they drafted, and we know they just hand out first round picks like crazy. So there is a formula to success there.
Yeah. So he's not going to hey, maybe he goes to Vegas. They draft 32nd overall.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Could that be the
No, they're trading that pick, actually. What are we talking about?
Danny Nelson comes in at 36 on our list. I like him. He's a 4.5-star guy for me in terms of in the second round, because I like the physical tools, and I think that a team that picks him is already going to have a high elite ceiling player in this draft. If it's early second, right? They probably have an early first as well, and that could be a good fit for a guy like Danny Nelson. He comes in 36 on our list. For more, head over to the Locked On Senators YouTube page. We got prospect profiles for the top 70 in this draft. You're Locked On Senators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, coming up next, we've got a pair more prospects, another U.S. kid, and we're going overseas for a kid who plays like a good Canadian boy, dare I say. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators. All right, Pillsy, Locked On Senators. Boy, did I want to talk about Danny Taylor or something. Hey?
I mean, it was all that talk about who's going to play in Belleville. That's what got your Danny Taylor talk going.
People are going to call me such an idiot when they don't see the context of that conversation, and they're just going to be like, this guy doesn't even know what the player's name is. Sorry, Danny Taylor's on my mind. What can I say?
Hey, it's Danny Nelson, a guy with 2 first names, and then Danny Taylor, a guy with 2 first names. So that'll happen.
Coming in at number 37 on our Locked On Senators 2023 NHL Draft Rankings, it's Charlie Stramel, who coming into the year had top 15 upside in this draft. He made the World Junior team as a young player. And now you're looking at a guy who, with an early birthday in this draft, I don't even know what to put. He's probably the toughest evaluation that we've had on this show.
Unfortunately, very underwhelming freshman year at the University of Wisconsin for Charlie Stramel. And look, these things happen, right? Like you go to a different competition level and you're not set up for success. That was, by all accounts, a tough year for Wisconsin. I believe they had a coaching change early on, and a lot of scouts were saying, hey, there was just no structure here. And when you're a freshman starting college hockey, you need structure to succeed, in my opinion. So I don't want to say these are excuses for Charlie Stramel, but it's certainly something you need to take into consideration, because in 33 games, he had 5 goals and 7 assists, 12 points. Very underwhelming. But he did have a better showing in the World Juniors, 3 assists in seven World Junior games. A lot of scouts said they were pleased with kind of seeing that. Okay, he's still got it. But he did have some opportunities. He played with Cruz Lucius a lot this year in Wisconsin. We know Chaz Lucius. They're brothers, right? They got to be. Chaz and Cruz.
Yes.
Yeah. So we know a lot about Chaz Lucius, Cruz Lucius, another great player. But other than that, I don't follow Wisconsin hockey that closely, but it seemed like there wasn't a whole lot of support, and then you have no structure, and that's tough.
Yeah, I just think that you're looking at a guy who maybe, and we've talked about this for some other guys, they've been on the scene for so long, you start kind of seeing the poor play or the one thing that's not ideal. And for Charlie Stramel, it's the fact that he's 6'3", 215 pounds, but doesn't play like a power forward at all. Like, he's not the type of guy who's going to go in first on the forecheck and, crash and smash and break up pucks and be that, pest out there, or a guy who's like, taking over games. It just feels like he fits into the flow of the game. He's a two-way guy. And it just, you always, from the highlights I saw, it just felt like I was left wanting more out of him for the package that you see. This guy made the World Junior team at 16. Like, he only got into one game that year, but he made the team at 16. So he's clearly been on the radar forever. And then this past year, 7 games, had 3 points, but they all came in the first 3 games. Or sorry, 2 of the 3 came in the first 2 games against, Latvia, world champions, and Slovakia as well. So it just felt like, even though he was playing second, third line minutes, he was 16, 17 minutes a game. It just felt like he just kind of leaves me wanting more. Penalties need to be cleaned up too. This guy takes too many minor penalties. And I know the situation he was at Wisconsin wasn't ideal. And there were a couple spots where, I think he had 9 in one game, but beyond that, it was a lot of minor penalties, 59 penalty minutes in 33 games, 5 goals, 7 assists. But again, points are tough when you're a true freshman, 18 years old in college, and you're not put in a position to succeed. Like, even look at Brady Tkachuk, 4th overall pick. He scored 8 goals, I think, his first freshman year. So 5 for Charlie Stramel, right? But I know Brady had a bunch of assists, but all that to say, you can see why the opinions are so different on Charlie Stramel. Chris Peters is the highest, Corey Pronman. Funny, the 2 American-based scouts are the highest on the American kid, Charlie Stramel. Pronman at 23, Peters at 29, and then there's a bit of a gap. Scott Wheeler has him down at 37. Elite Prospects is at 47, and Craig Button is not sold on Charlie Stramel. He has him down at 68. Now, I think a team's going to love him, and I think a team's going to take him, just like coaches kept taking him for World Junior teams, even at 16. I do think they're going to see the size, they're going to see the potential, and they're going to tell themselves that was a bad team at Wisconsin. Imagine if Cole Caulfield was there. They'll say, hey, imagine if he had someone on his wing that was able to put up points. I think we'd be looking at a different situation. I don't know. I'm not personally sold on Charlie Stramel. I think he's pretty, out of the 37 we've done, he's probably 33 or later.
Yeah, I'm with Elite Prospects on this one, Ross. I don't have, if I'm betting on players in this area in the 30s, Charlie Stramel is not a guy I'm putting my money on, unfortunately. I think he's going to go middle, second round. Personally, I probably would maybe take him with an early third here, just because it's just concerning how much of a drop-off there is. And Scott Wheeler mentioned that he often looked like the third guy on the line, like he was kind of being held up by his teammates. I think he's a well-rounded prospect, but there's not one single thing about him that pops for me, like nothing. And maybe this is a jack of all trades, master of none type situation, but he's lower on my rankings. Like I got him at a 2.5 stars out of 5. He's sitting down there with Edward Chalet. Unfortunately, this is just, there's so much damn talent in this draft. You can't be banking on you obviously bank on potential. You can't be trying to chase a bet here. Like you can't be like, Stramel, he was so good. He's got to get back. He's got to get back. There's just so many other surefire picks that this isn't a guy I would be targeting personally.
Corey Pronman, the highest on him at 23, does say he's below average hockey sense, but high-end compete. So there's kind of that yin and yang there. But his analysis of him goes on to say his pure athletic tools are highly intriguing and can power his way through checks to the net, never shies away for an engagement. I didn't necessarily see that, but he finishes off by saying, due to the lack of sense, there's a possibility that he may need to play wing, but his great face-off skills could counteract that. Basically, if I put them head-to-head, Pilsy, Charlie Stramel or Danny Nelson, who are you picking?
Oh, Nelson all day. Yeah.
Me too. But I think a team is going to fall in love with Charlie Stramel. I think he goes at or above where we have him at 37.
Okay. Yeah. I'll say my official prediction is he's in the 40s.
Okay, I'll go 30s. You got 40s on Charlie Stramel, who comes in at number 37 on our Locked On Senators 2023 NHL Draft Rankings. For more, check us out on YouTube at Locked On Senators. All right, coming in at number 38, my favorite of the 3 prospects today, it's Kasper Halttunen, who's been overplaying in Liga for the last couple seasons. This guy seems mature beyond his years.
Yeah, this is a guy that has experience in the pro leagues. And when you look at his dimensions, I've got him at 6'3", 207 pounds. Yeah, that's where you got him as well. He's got the frame that he can play with the big boys, but also he's got the maturity that allows him to play bigger minutes. Like he was averaging 10 minutes a night in Liga, Ross, and even into the teens some nights. So I think there was some trust there. And you talk about maturity. In 5 U18 games, not only did he get 10 points, so two points per game production, you like to see that, but he was also the captain of Team Finland. So there's a lot of good aspects to his game where you're looking at Kasper Halttunen and you're saying, I can see the makings of a pro player here.
And you can see the makings of a power forward as well. If you look at the stats against his own age group, they pop. 18 goals in 18 games, 24 points. Captain at the World Under-18s for his team, where he led them. 6 goals in 5 games, 10 points, averaging 2 points per game. Elite Prospects is not sold on him, though. They have him at 62 on their rankings. Craig Button at 25, in between Scott Wheeler at 34, Chris Peters at 37, Corey Pronman at 46. I think he like first, second, or third pick in the second round. A team's going to just love the physical tools, the maturity, and the fact that I think he's 2 years away from playing on a bottom 6. I don't know if there's top 6 potential in there, but as a right wing player, I think he can go and fit in on a bottom 6 on an entry level contract for the duration of the deal. I think he's going to be a guy who plays all 3 years of his entry level deal in the NHL, and teams that are close to the cap are going to see a lot of value with that for Kasper Halttunen.
Yep, I agree. And looking at his highlights playing in Liga, he plays a very simple game. And as a young player in a men's league, I think that's probably a smart way to approach it. If you try to dangle your way through these guys, they're going to pick you off pretty quickly. They're smarter, faster, and stronger than guys in the U20 league. Like you mentioned, he lit it up with 18 goals. So you got to have a different approach. But what he does a great job of just rushing up the wing and just ripping a shot on net. Now, some people, myself, I like that. I like a player that's just going to, honestly, I'll take a player that just has the mentality, get the puck on net 10 times out of 10 over a guy that's going to try to dangle his way through and get a high danger scoring opportunity, because the opportunities to do that, he's probably turning the puck over a bunch. I like just getting it on net, getting that face off or getting a rebound or just beating the goalie clean. Now, some scouts, I think EP, they knocked him for that. They said, okay, like how many times can he just go up the wing and rip a wrister on a goalie and he saves it? Like you got to try for more than that, which is fair. But I think at this point in his development playing in Liga, that's something that a coach maybe not be ecstatic about, but you're coming to the bench and he's not screaming at you or anything like that, right? So I think there's opportunities for Halttunen to try to be a little bit more creative as he gets better, but he's got that good shot. And Ross, EP awarded him second hardest hitter in the draft. So a guy that rips the pill on net and is out there crushing bodies at this age, at that size, sounds good to me.
Sounds great to me. And because he's trusted as a captain, obviously leadership qualities are there, but also the defensive game, I don't think is an issue for Halttunen. I think that that's something that at the next level, especially, he's going to be able to develop and make a strength to his game. EP does have him as like a raw talent. I see that as well, but also there's a maturity in his game that I mentioned as well. Ironically, he's one of the younger players in this draft. He just turned 18 on June 7th. So there's tons of runway for him. I think you keep him over in Finland because he definitely needs to acclimate to league a little bit more. You mentioned the games played, but still looking for his first goal at that level. Let him play, I think, 2 more years over there, sign him to his entry level and put him right on a 4th line. And like, I think that, especially in a bottom 6, put the puck on net. Good things happen. And if you're playing with other kind of net crashing type players, go get rebounds. That's where a lot of goals are scored. So I see it as a very positive thing that he's able to put the puck on net and able to rip it the way he can. I'm a huge fan of Kasper Halttunen. And I think if you're a team that just picked him, you're going to see a guy who he needs to, I would really strap him with a skating coach. Like that's probably one thing from his game where he needs, if he wants to be more than a bottom 6 NHLer, the skating has to improve, but the shot is high end. The compete is there. He crushes guys. He's a right shot, right wing. I'm a huge fan of Kasper Halttunen. Yeah,
and he plays the left half wall on the power play, Ross. He's got a good one-timer. And the thing is, though, he's a very one-dimensional player. He's going to drive up, rip shot on net, rip one-timers, play physical.
Actually kind of reminds me of a player that just signed in Winnipeg, and not to, I feel like I've compared him to, oh no, it was Yuri Schmeichel who I compared to this guy, but Saku Maenalainen, where it's like big body, shoots the puck, but like he had 4 goals and 10 points this year in 50 some games. Like the production might not always be there, but he's not going to hurt you when he's on the ice either.
No, exactly. And that's the thing though, is Halttunen, he's not really a playmaker. So when he's coming down that wing, keep him wide and he's going to shoot it and just let your goalie see it. And he's probably going to stop that more often than not. So there's interesting ways to look at that. But I got Halttunen at 3.5 stars here. I think that a team can project him to play NHL games. Some people, like we talked to Rachel Dory, and she loved Barry Trott's quote being like, hey, telling his scouts, draft for guys that are going to play in the top 6 and top 4 and starting goaltenders. I'll figure out bottom 6, bottom pair, and backup goalies. We'll find those with our pro scouting. Draft for high-end talent. Not every scouting group, not every franchise probably shares those same values, and some of them are trying to find bottom 6 players that they can draft and develop. So it all depends on your approach.
It's going to be one of those teams. I don't think he's going to be going to Nashville. I'll put it that way.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. But Kasper Halttunen, I think he's going to go mid-30s is my guess for Kasper Halttunen. How about you?
Yeah, honestly, we got him at 38. I like that for him. I think you're going to see high 30s, anywhere between 35 and 50, I think is a good spot for him.
You like him at 38? Exactly. So you have him going to Arizona at 38. Congratulations on being a Coyote. We'll clip that if and when the Coyotes take Kasper Halttunen. But you can find all of our draft coverage on YouTube, individual player profiles on the YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe. Locked On Senators on YouTube. All right, Pillsy, wrapping up today's show. Any final thoughts?
Should we do some Alex DeBrincat mock trades?
Nope, but we can tell you a little news. Ian Mendez, it's news that isn't news, but I appreciate Mendez for reaching out. He has spoken to Travis Hamonic's agent, who says that he's still very interested in coming back to Ottawa, but no formal offer has been made. I mean, TikTok, it's June 20th. It's also something they could circle back to. After
they got bigger fish to fry right now.
That's what Mendez says. They understand, and it's Kevin Epp who represents Travis Hamonic. They understand DeBrincat's situation could be holding things up.
Big time.
He stresses Hamonic loves it here and would like to come back. Shout out Ian Mendez for that. I would like him to come back, but my limit is 1 year, $1.5 million, and I'm standing firm on that.
1.5. Okay.
1.8. That's the final offer. 1.8.
Anything under 2.5, I think, is fine at a 1 year, just because I think there will be rebuilding teams out there, Ross, that give them the Eric Branson type deal, 3-4 years at a boosted price just to get a veteran, stable guy like Chicago. I think Chicago would love to have a guy like Travis Hamonic there.
I know they're both righties, but a Zaitsev-Hamonic pair on Chicago next year?
I mean, that was the Sens situation for a while.
Man, I keep going back to the fact, though, that Hamonic just always spoke about how Ottawa rejuvenated his career on and off the ice. I think that off-ice part is very important for Travis Hamonic. I think he's back on a 1 year.
I'd love that.
And even if it's after July 1st, I don't know if Hamonic, if he's in a rush to sign, I would understand that. And if he wants to take the highest bidder, totally understand that. But I think the fit is great for him to work in the Nick Holden role from last year. So we'll have more on that as it comes. And Pilsy, we're scouring the free agent goalie market tomorrow. And also which goalies could be available for trades. We've heard Carter Hart's name. We did an episode on that. But are there some other names that we can get to? That's coming up tomorrow. But for today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On Senators podcast. It's your team every day.